Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unstoppable Woman podcast. I'm Amira Alvarez. I'm your host, and I'm so happy that you're here. In this episode, I am sharing with you how I got rid of my headache completely without using meds, without using over the counter medication like Advil or Aleve or whatever your headache mechanism of choice is. And I'm going to help you understand how this process that I used is 100% connected to manifesting anything you want. So I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you're joining us. Let's dive in. So, the first question that I have for you is in life, in business, what if you leaned in rather than leaning back? What if you actually didn't see yourself as separate from what was happening and thus needing to pull back, constrain, protect yourself, fight against what is in front of you, think that it is happening to you? What if all of that was old conditioning, was how you previously thought about life and business, and instead you chose to explore this concept of leaning in to your experience? Now, many of you have heard me talk about how life is happening for you, not to you. This is completely akin to this concept. So when something outside of yourself, seemingly outside of yourself, because I'm going to speak from both old perspective, which is things are outside of ourselves. And on the physical plane, there is some truth to that. But on the spiritual plane, we are all one. And you have to bridge this concept to really execute uh, headache relieving properties that you have, that power that you have, and also manifest whatever you want. So hang in there with me. So this concept is that life is happening for you, not to you. And you've heard me speak about this in relationship to business, but also in relationship to life. But let's take business, because I work with women, small business owners, entrepreneurs who are wanting to create more in their lives, of course, and in their business. And yet stuff happens. This is the way of life and of business. The challenges keep coming like the waves of the ocean. So if you think that it's happening to you, it is outside of yourself and you have to fight against it. You are a victim of circumstance that's happening to you and you have to protect yourself, hunker down, figure out a strategy to fight back and change what's coming. This is the struggle way. This is the hard way. This is the way that creates a lot of strife in your psyche, in your experience, in your body. This is where that tension comes from. This is where the overwhelm comes from. And it doesn't have to be that way. So instead of fighting against something and seeing it as something outside of you, what if you leaned in and became one with it? And didn't create an adversarial relationship with that experience. So today we're looking at a headache as an experience that you don't want, but you could easily be looking at low cash flow, not enough income, not enough clients, not enough revenue. You're not able to hire the right team or the right person, or feeling supported in your life and your business. There are all sorts of challenges that exist, from marketing and sales to leadership and team, to business model and operations, and how you create the scale that you want to develop in your life and business. You can either look at it as a challenge that is happening to you, or something that you lean into and you become one with. And let's talk about what happens there. So the first thing that I want to speak to here is that you must approach this not just as an intellectual construct or understanding. Now, I am someone who has a very strong intellect. That's part of my identity. That's how I was raised. I was raised to be a critical thinker. I was raised to use my logic mind. That is so much a part of who I am. So I tend to start with investigating life through that lens, through that power that I have, that I have honed, that skill set. And many of you have this as well. We tend to be in our heads a lot. Now, this is great. There's a shadow side and a positive side to this. The positive side is you can make sense of the world to some degree very well. You can sort things out. You can order things. All of that makes it very useful. It is what is prioritized in this 3D physical plane. Now, the challenge is that that only gets you so far. So, how do you move from that level of intellectual understanding into a deeper kinesthetic, energetic, mental, emotional understanding? And this is the key, guys. You can't just leave it at the intellectual level. I am very fortunate to have understood this early on and honed this skill for myself. And you can do this too. You need to start now, which means you need to start understanding kinesthetically, meaning in your body. There are feelings and sensations that you have all the time in your body, and they are gross sensations like a headache grabbing your attention, or acute pain, or the acute pain of grief, right? That gets your attention quite impactfully and obviously. But there are much more subtle signs of what's happening. And if you attune yourself to those in your body, you will get much more feedback. And so you're going to want to start doing that. And when you start building this access to this power that is yours, you were born with it. When you start paying more attention to it and giving it primacy in your life, it is like a litmus test that's super, super clear. It's green light, red light, correct, incorrect, positive, negative, open, close. And it tells you exactly whether you are on track or off track. And if you pay attention to this and then keep course correcting back to on track, correct for you, you will be able to use this process everywhere in your life for manifesting ease in your body, like letting go of a headache, or manifesting clients, or cash flow, or great new partnerships and collaborations, whatever you desire. Okay. So the thing here is that you have to start playing with what it feels like in your body to be one with, not separate from, the experience that you're experiencing. So in this case, the experience was a headache, and it was throbbing and acute, and it was knocking me out, and I was, quite frankly, irritated by it. The truth be told, I was in a little bit of a pissy mood about it. And then I came back to the truth, and I realized, oh, I am saying that this experience that I'm experiencing is wrong or bad or incorrect, and I'm making it wrong, and I'm saying it shouldn't be like this, and it's against me, and I need to fight it, and I'm a victim of this headache, as if the headache were separate from me. Now, how is that possible? Think about this in your body. It's very clear that that is you, right? Now, you could say, like, there's energetics that aren't you that get inside of you. I get that. We're not going to go in that direction. But I want you to understand that it's like you're saying there's a part of you, like your arm is not your arm. And yet it is your arm. Like if you fall down and you bruise your arm and it hurts and your muscles are sore, is that muscle pain not part of your arm? Of course, you could make all sorts of arguments that are sort of on the metaphysical level around that. But we're not doing that. We're just recognizing this is part of us, and yet we're rejecting it. We're saying it's not us. And instead, I want you to experience in your body this concept of what if this were you? No separation. You were one with it. Well, what happens then is that you open to it. You create, instead of a tightening and a constriction and a blocking to that experience of, in this case, headache pain, you open to the experience of it being for you, not against you. Okay. And instantaneously, the pain goes away from me. Let's break this down a little bit more. When you stop the separation, when you stop saying, I am separate from this pain, but you embrace it, you open. Now, there's a physical opening that is connected with that thought and emotional experience. And what do non-steroid anti-inflammatories do? NSAIDs, right? The Advils and the Tylenols and the aspirins and the Aleve of the world. They're anti-inflammatories. They take the inflammation down so that the blood flow can move unconstricted. Now, I'm not a doctor, and that's the extent of my knowledge. So there's probably much more to it than that. But the simplified version of my understanding here is that I stopped the constraint. I opened instead, and the blood flow flows. Okay. There's a physical shift that happens. And that shift comes with joy. Okay. So I often tell my clients, like, it's about living a delighted, I made up that word because I like it more than delightful, but you can use the grammatically correct word if you want. But this delighted, lit up life. And you get there by not making the world around you wrong or yourself wrong. You embrace rather than go into conflict. That doesn't mean you don't do things differently, that you don't put new causes into effect, that you don't challenge yourself to grow. You absolutely do. But the way of it, the quality behind it is totally different. And by the way, this headache started the day before. Okay. It started yesterday, and I took 2 a leave thinking I just have to get through this day, right? And it didn't do diddly squat. I rarely take over the counter medicines, and I think it's because my body just doesn't do well with them. They don't work for me. But I tried it again yesterday, and it just didn't work. It did nothing for the headache. But when I approached it differently today, and I just want you to know, I could have approached this yesterday this way, but I was not present to this as the experience. So I'm very transparent about my process, and that it's not about perfection. It's not about always being perfect, but it is about seeing when you wake up the next morning and you realize, oh, I am allowing myself to be thrown out of heaven, and heaven is my natural state. And that is something that I am not available for. So I have to hold myself to a higher standard. What would that be? Oh, yes, you get back to presence and remembrance, and you approach it differently with, this is for me, not against me, and you have a different experience, and it supports you at a higher level. So I just want you to understand, when you are working this yourself, one of the biggest things that you have to learn how to do if you're really going to scale is to not make yourself wrong, but also not allow yourself to stay in the story or the old way of being, or to let yourself off the hook. It's about gently, lovingly, compassionately growing yourself. And that is so important in both life and business. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that the first time I said, okay, I'm going to be one with this headache, it instantaneously went away, but then very quickly came right back, right? I had to build trust with it. I needed to with myself. I needed to stick with it. I needed to stay in that opening and not go back into a closed place when I shifted my attention. And this is called open focus versus closed focus. And you can practice this open focus versus closed focus. And I'm by no means the first person who's ever like talked about this. Is not a new concept. It's a well-known concept. So it's open focus thinking, and it's like being able to focus on something, but also having a wider field of awareness. And if you're able to do that, you have this connected one with the universe feeling. And and also, of course, many spiritual traditions talk about, you know, having oneness and not having separation. So like don't think that I am uh, unique in this or the first person to talk about this, but I think what I'm hoping for is that when you listen to this explanation of how I used it to let go of and get rid of my headache, you will realize that you can use it for just about anything in your life. Okay. And that this is the trick to manifestation here. So what was different for me in practicing this, and I think is different from a lot of the ways that people practice open focus thinking or um, becoming one with the universe, is like, as opposed to meditation, which I am very pro, that is a separate activity. Now, sometimes people talk about walking meditations, and you could make the argument that this is more like a walking or a moving meditation. It is staying focused on being open while you do other things. Okay. So the differentiation that I'm making is that you're doing this practice of opening kinesthetically, intellectually, energetically, and mentally and emotionally while you're living your life not separate from, right? Not, while you're actually in activity. And I think that's a big differentiating factor here, and what I would love for you to start practicing. And this is something that I have long applied to my coaching, my mentoring, my teaching. However, I forget on the physical side, and I have to remind myself. So this was different for me because I was doing it with physical pain instead of just with how I tap in when I am coaching or mentoring or teaching someone. So that's also a big difference. I would encourage you to look at where, if you're familiar with this concept, where you feel proficient with it already and where you could add it into your life and grow it for yourself, because that's the edge we always want to be on. We want to be on a growth edge, constantly experiencing more for ourselves, and when you do that, you experience more for the world as well, which is such a great and beautiful feeling. And you can look at it wherever you have that inner self-talk that is negating your state of delight. So for instance, maybe you have a headache and you're saying to yourself, okay, I just need to suck it up today. I just need to get on with it. Like, this is just going to be the kind of day it is. Right. Or maybe you're saying to yourself, this relationship just sucks. Right. And you have this negative self talk about how this relationship is doing something negative to you, or this breakup sucks, or this cash flow issue sucks, or this experience of not having enough time in my business sucks. And you have this repetitive thought in your mind about it. Well, you're setting yourself up for being adversarial with that experience, separate from rather than one with. And now I get how you might think, well, I don't want to be one with the suffering. I don't want to be one with the grief. I don't want to be one with the low cash flow. And yet, what you resist persists. Okay. What you resist persists. I know you've all heard that before. And yet, I want you to let that drop in at a deeper level. When you become one with something, you no longer resist it, and you can work with it instead of fighting, using all your energy to fight it. Okay. So this is such an important concept when you're thinking about manifesting, more cash flow, if that's what you want, or bigger income, or a nicer house, or a nicer vacation, or the ability to leave your job and start your own business, whatever it is that you're going for. What if you were not in an adversarial, outside, separate relationship with that which you would like to be different? Think about that. So when you stop having an adversarial relationship with these experiences, great things happen. This is where manifestation or creation becomes so easy because you're not fighting, but creating. Okay. And so know that this can happen at ever higher levels of awareness, and that you're going to want to keep growing yourself and asking yourself, where am I in conflict? Where am I being adversarial? Where am I creating separation versus integration or oneness? And keep working that from a higher level of awareness. In fact, this is resonating with you. I would probably mark your calendar for next week and next month, and maybe 3 or 4 months from now, to go back and listen to this episode again and see if you hear it from a higher level of awareness based on your personal growth, and whether you can apply these concepts to higher level experiences or different experiences than you previously had thought possible. So I look forward to hearing how that goes for you, how this dropped in. I always love the comments and emails that we get from our listeners. And thanks for listening. I'm Amira Alvarez. I am the founder and the CEO of The Unstoppable Woman. And if you would like help scaling your business with ease and grace, please book a consult with us. We would love to talk to you. Okay, have an amazing day and rock it out. Be unstoppable. Hey, thanks so much for joining us and being part of the Unstoppable Woman movement. We have got a ton of free resources for scaling your business at theunstoppablewoman.com/free stuff. And you can find that link in the description below. So go ahead and check those out. And we'd also love your help in getting our message out to more and more women. If you'd be willing to share this video with all the unstoppable women in your life, that would be fantastic. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Reviews, likes, and comments are greatly appreciated. We go in and read them all. So thank you for those. And thanks for listening, and be unstoppable.